Okay, so y'all know we have done a lot of mock drafts on this channel, whether that's a Dynasty startup draft, whether that's going to be a Dynasty rookie draft, but I believe this is our first Dynasty live rookie mock draft for the 2022 offseason. So going to be excited to get y'all in here, going to be excited to run through a lot of this. I mean, first off, let me go send the link out so we can get people to fill this up. Should take 15 seconds. And also, let me remind you, for the love of God, go down there, press that like button, subscribe to the channel. We are just continuing to crush every single day Dynasty fantasy football content. I would make the argument we have the best Dynasty content, and it's not that close. Of course, I mean, I'm an idiot, so it doesn't really matter that much how good the content is, but that link should be out there over on Patreon. This draft room is about to be full. I think we got 2 spots left. Yeah, people on Patreon, they're ready to hop in. We only have 2 spots. I'd imagine this is taken right away. So let's go into this. This is going to be a 12-team super flex tight end premium rookie mock draft. Let's ride. Let's start the draft here. We got Anthony Ashton out in the chat right now. Thank y'all so much. Anthony saying, fix your life. Yes, fix your life. Drop that like. And if you're watching this as a video later on, make sure you let me know how dumb I am down there in the comment section. Treylon Burks going off at the 101. You know what I should probably do as we run through a couple of these mock drafts here? I don't think we're just going to do one. We'll probably get a couple going in this live stream. So I should probably have my rookie rankings pulled up to go alongside this. That would be a decent idea. And I do have Treylon Burks at the 101. I mean, these rankings will 100% continue to change, especially once we get the NFL Combine. I mean, my rankings will be updated the second we get that Combine. And this is, I mean, the perfect example of how my rankings have already shifted this offseason. I mean, if y'all remember at the very beginning of the offseason, I had Matt Corral as our quarterback 1. Now, that was back when Malik Willis was being projected to be a late first round, early second round NFL draft pick. Historical hit rates for that range, not great. We were still willing to rank Malik Willis a lot higher than other quarterbacks in that range, primarily and almost exclusively based on his rushing upside. But now that it looks like Malik Willis is going to be at least in consideration as the top quarterback in the NFL draft off the board, I mean, from a Dynasty fantasy football perspective, whenever you have the elite rushing ceiling, I think Malik Willis is an easy pick at the 105 because let's play the what if game here. Okay, so Isaiah Spiller goes directly after. I don't know if I personally would have taken Isaiah Spiller. Definitely would have been in consideration. But let's play the what if game between Malik Willis and Isaiah Spiller because this may be a decision point that you're having to make as well. So what happens if Isaiah Spiller comes out his rookie season? And let's not even focus in on the probability of this happening. Let's say, what if Isaiah Spiller comes out, he's a mid running back 2 in fantasy. Oh, people will be excited. People will be willing to move Isaiah Spiller up to probably being, say, a top 3 round starter pick based on how those running backs on their rookie contracts are valued. But at the same time, if Malik Willis comes out and he's the quarterback 15 on a points per game basis, you could see Malik Willis going in the top 2 rounds of Dynasty startup drafts. I think if we're talking from a value perspective, if both players were to hit their rookie seasons, you're going to have a lot less, I mean, of the entire Dynasty community making arguments against Malik Willis based on what we have seen with these rookie quarterbacks after they hit and what their value does. And to go along with this, right now, there are massive concerns about the draft capital that you're going to get with Isaiah Spiller. The first iteration of our rookie rankings months ago, we actually had Isaiah Spiller and Breece Hall over, I mean, not all these wide receivers. We've always had Treylon Burks at the 101, but we had those running backs over someone like Drake London. And since then, I've actually moved Drake London over them because you are going to get a lot of different opinions on where you're expecting Breece Hall and Isaiah Spiller to go in the NFL draft. Now, it's most likely that someone like Breece Hall goes in the middle of the second round, which we would love to see that kind of team investment in the job security that he may have going forward. But it's also a possibility he goes mid-round 3. And that's just a completely different running back profile that we're looking at. Same thing with Isaiah Spiller. It's probably likely he goes late round 2. But it's also a possibility that instead Isaiah Spiller makes it into late round 3. early round 4. I've seen those mock drafts out there. It's highly unlikely, but we know for a fact Malik Willis, first round NFL draft pick, Drake London, first round NFL draft pick. There's really no concern with any of those players. And also, y'all know that I'm not a massive fan of the NFL Combine in terms of prospect evaluation. I think a lot of people overrate it, specifically at the quarterback and, more importantly, wide receiver positions. At running back, the combine is crucial in looking at official size measures as well as speed for those RBs. So until we actually have those data points, I'm going to be a little bit lower on someone like Isaiah Spiller and Breece Hall, and I'm going to be fine going with Malik Willis, which is a change from what we previously had. And here, a player that, I mean, I feel like I've been talking crap on for quite a while. He was going, I mean, a lot earlier than this in mock drafts about 2 months ago, but he has fallen since. David Bell. David Bell is the perfect example of someone that checks every single analytical box. I mean, if you're looking at David Bell's metrics, I mean, he broke out at an early age at Purdue. I mean, he also plays in that same offense with Rondale Moore. Now, keep in mind, I mean, Rondale Moore wasn't able to stay healthy, so it's not an exact comparison. I think Rondale Moore played less than half the games that David Bell was there at Purdue, but it doesn't really matter. He played alongside NFL talent, broke out at an early age. His final season, his true junior season, which is when we need to see these players be dominant and come out of college, he was just that. Now, if we're comparing him to other prospects, someone like Chris Olave, I mean, y'all know I've been making the argument for a very long time to go with Chris Olave over David Bell, and I think that I'm still going to be standing by that based on a couple different variables. But, I mean, if we're getting David Bell at the 205, completely fine with that investment. Okay. So let's go. Jameson says, I hope and pray Malik Willis drops to pick 5. Yeah, I'm never going to pretend like I'm some massive quarterback scouting guru. If anybody on YouTube is coming out and, like, let's just be smart about this. If someone's coming on YouTube and telling you that they can efficiently identify quarterbacks that are going to succeed at the next level better than just the market value, that's like the same thing you going to YouTube and thinking that a financial advice, thinking that someone's going to be able to make a video telling you, oh, SoFi is going to go through the moon. SoFi is going to 100x. Those people have no idea what the hell they're talking about. Like, let's leave it to the professionals. I think instead we look at the capital, we look at the rushing upside, we look at the situation he's stepping into. So not saying Malik Willis is going to be some great NFL quarterback, but just like what we said with Jalen Hurts back in the 2020 class, if he is starting, going to be a great fantasy quarterback based on the rushing upside. Okay, so now Skye Moore going at the 212. I'm not a big fan of Skye Moore. I mean, if you look at Skye Moore compared to Dwayne Eskridge actually accounted for about 47%, I believe, of Western Michigan's receiving production on a per-game basis his final season there. That was alongside Skye Moore. Skye Moore had about half the production that Dwayne Eskridge did. I mean, go and send the 212 and make that offer for Dwayne Eskridge. It's getting accepted every single day of the week. So for all of us to be just on board with taking Skye Moore in this range, I am probably going to be off of it. Now, actually, I don't want to speak too early. We're 3 picks away. Let's let this play out. John Mechie goes at the 302. I've actually been against a lot of people hyping Mechie up as of late, but if you want to take him here at the 302, completely fine value. I think that's where he should be going. Jordan Wyatt was going to be my guy that we were looking at the 304. I think instead, I talked a little bit about Jalen Tolbert. I mean, this is a player that was hyper-productive near the end of his career. I believe he did stay all 4 years in college. However, let me pull this up just to be sure. I'm not going to take him anyway. I mean, our top wide receiver ranked is going to be Wan'Dale Robinson, probably mispronounced it, but a very dynamic, very athletic wide receiver that was productive. Yeah, so at South Alabama, you did have Jalen Tolbert as a hyper-productive player. I mean, he goes out there and accounts for over 100 receiving yards a game his final season, but, I mean, he was a true senior at South Alabama. I think we got to take Robinson here. I mean, if we're going to be pulling up this analytical profile from Robinson, keep in mind, this is going to be a player that maybe sees his value, have a bump up coming out of Kentucky once we get to the combine. I don't know. I'm not really going to care too much about that, but he did break out his true freshman year. And he was hyper productive at Kentucky. And of course you can throw on the highlight tapes, which don't really matter, but he looks fantastic. We're not going to talk about that. Okay. So, and let me give a big thank you. It looks like about 20% of the people in the chat right now have dropped a like on the video, so I appreciate that definitely. Okay, so Tolbert goes right after. I'm completely fine with anybody wanting to take Tolbert at the 308. Like I've said, I mean, if you're getting Tolbert at the end of the third, the beginning of the fourth, I think that's a great value. However, if we just have Robinson on the board to us, I think we kind of have to take him. Like, to go over and look at grinding the mocks, this is a website. I'll just show you all my window up here so y'all know what it looks like. Not an ad by any means, but it is something that I use heavily at this time of the year to kind of have an idea of what the draft capital is going to be looking like for these players. They compose a ton of mock drafts from all over the internet. Now, of course, wide receiver draft capital doesn't matter nearly as much as it will at other positions. So this isn't the only thing driving our decision making. But I mean, currently you do have Robinson as a projected late second round pick compared to, say, Tolbert's another guy I like who's projected to go at the beginning of the fourth in the Tylan Wallace range. And that player is probably just going to be a roster clogger. But Robinson, I think he could flash early. But here's going to be the draft room. I am definitely going to get at least one more rookie draft going. I guess we can kind of look for picks that maybe stand out here. George Pickens, obviously, this is a player that has been, I want to say, the most hyped rookie this offseason. Like, y'all know, I talk to probably 50 people every single day with their Dynasty Fantasy Football thoughts. That's all I do all day on Patreon and on Discord. And every single person says the same thing. My guy, the guy nobody's looking at, my guy is George Pickens. I identify George Pickens. And then everybody tries to one-up each other and says, I mean, everybody in the Dynasty community is in the same camp talking about how undervalued George Pickens is. So what happens is people try to one-up each other in that camp so they can look like the George Pickens guy. I mean, one guy will go, oh, George Pickens, he would be Drake London if he never got hurt. He would be Garrett Wilson if he never got hurt. The next guy goes, oh, George Pickens, he would be the wide receiver 1 overall in this draft class if he never got hurt. George Pickens, like, what are we talking about here? We're looking at an incomplete profile, someone that, while yes, definitely has upside, we are going to be comparing him to these other wide receiver prospects that check every single box that have shown elite flashes. There's no reason to be putting an incomplete profile up in that range. Now, that is not to say George Pickens is a bad pick at the 202 by any means. I think for the value you get him at, George Pickens in this range is fantastic. This is almost identical to where I have him in my own rookie rankings, and you're going to be excited with this draft pick. However, to begin talking about a wide receiver that is a pure upside play that we don't have the entire picture on, if we are talking about taking him over guys like Kenneth Walker, probably going to be the first running back in this draft class, talking about taking him over Kenny Pickett, who's going to be going in the middle of the first round, definitely going to get a start at least some point in the NFL. I mean, that's where we go into crazy mode. So please, please have your George Pickens hype, but don't think you're the George Pickens guy, because everybody is the George Pickens guy, and don't think you need to leapfrog everybody in your hype and your conviction for him and start putting him in those top 3, because he's nothing close to it. So let me go through and grab another mock draft link, and we'll send this one out on Patreon as well. Okay, we drafted at the 105 this past time. So now I'm going to be drafting at, let's just go on the other. Let's go the 307. Let me grab this link, and I'd imagine that it should fill up in probably 30 seconds, especially because people know that we're live, so they're going to be able to go over there and hop in right away. Okay, we got that out. And this is going to be the same exact format. This is going to be a 12-team Superflex tight end premium league. I know a lot of people probably want to see a 1-quarterback mock draft. The thing with the 1-quarterback mock draft is literally just look at the Superflex board, move the quarterbacks dramatically down it, bam, you got yourself a 1-quarterback mock draft. Malik Willis will probably be the first quarterback off the board in a 1-quarterback mock draft, and he'll probably be going at the beginning of the second. And I apologize, this looks like it's going to be a snake draft. Let me change the settings on Sleeper. Okay, so I think we should be good to go. Looks like it is full. We got a lot of people that are usually out in the mock drafts. Thank you, of course, everybody. I don't even want to start giving the shout outs for everybody that's in this mock draft, because they're always in here. So thank you, of course. Okay, so now we got Treylon Burks going at the 101, to no surprise to anybody, even though for whatever reason Sleeper has Breece Hall's ADP at the 101. I'd imagine possibly this is because in a redraft format, people are going to be taking Breece Hall with the expectations. Historically, running backs are going to outproduce wide receivers their rookie season, so I'd imagine that maybe a little bit of redraft mentality sneaking in here. But you got Breece Hall at the 104, Dylan on the clock. Post-Dylan, probably one of the sharpest Dynasty players that you're going to play with here. Every time he joins a Flock Patreon Dynasty League, I'm like, oh man, do we have to have you in here? I love you, man, but I don't want you in this draft room. He takes Kenneth Walker at the 105, Malik Willis. Do I have my Dynasty rankings pulled up? Let me tell you all exactly where we're going to be going with this 107. Now, I know most people are probably going to say, Mason, go with Isaiah Spiller, and I will be the first person to admit, I would have gone with Isaiah Spiller a long time ago. I was looking at this draft class saying, oh, well, let's invest on the running backs. It's always a good idea to put those running backs first to make sure that we are getting those players that are going to see an immediate opportunity on the field, yada, yada, yada. But to be frank, I mean, I think Isaiah Spiller does have a lower floor than what we initially gave him credit for. I mean, right now, he's projected to be an early third-round pick in the NFL draft. I don't necessarily think, even with his pass catching profile, we could take him over someone like Kenny Pickett that can potentially be a top 10, at least borderline NFL draft pick, and historically get 1 to 2 years to start at the NFL in a super flex league. Because as we've discussed with these quarterbacks, while yes, these quarterback prospects aren't nearly as good of what we had at the top end of the past few draft classes, still with Kenny Pickett, I mean, you know that if he were to hit and provide you that mid quarterback 2 season, his rookie season, just speaking on what young Dynasty quarterback values do, they go up. He will skyrocket. So we're going to take Kenny Pickett here at the 107. Chris Olave was definitely in consideration. I'm sorry, Isaiah Spiller was definitely in consideration. I like seeing people take Chris Olave here. Like, this is very similar to the George Pickens hype train. So everybody goes in on one player and says, this is my guy. This is my guy. This is my guy. Because the more times you hear people say how undervalued George Pickens is, even though he was severely undervalued when he was going in the late second round, once he slides up to being a first round pick, which I have seen a ton, all of a sudden it's a different conversation and maybe he's not that undervalued. You almost have the exact opposite happening with Chris Olave, where it's the popular thing to do. I mean, you get that echo chamber going where everybody going, oh, Chris Olave, you're talking about the NFL bust, right? Yeah, he's busted. I mean, no, he has no shot. That's the popular thing to do. So you just get him continuously falling down. And I know that I'm not making much sense here because, I mean, in both of these drafts, you've had Chris Olave going before George Pickens. But I am telling you this, if you hop into 100 of these, the majority of them are going to have George Pickens over Chris Olave. The majority of them are going to have Chris Olave a little bit after where he's gone in the past two, and George Pickens a little bit higher. Dotson at the 202 is a player I have to apologize for. Jahan Dotson, I originally discounted his production based on him staying at Penn State for 4 years. That was my original process behind it. But looking a little bit further into the situation, I think Dotson is a fine value. I'm not going to be aggressively drafting him this year, but if you wanted to take him when he falls to the beginning of the second, I'm completely fine with that. I was ignorant. I was horribly wrong whenever I previously said that he was an overrated wide receiver because, I mean, if you look at his pure market numbers, they're not necessarily the best, but as we talk about all the time, we need to put context behind this. So he gets there 2018. Yeah, he doesn't really go out and produce right away at all, but he's playing on an offense that has KJ Hamler, who is a great wide receiver, just hasn't had the shot. Pat Frymuth, who I think we just saw this rookie season, looks to be one of the great tight ends in the NFL for the future. And also Miles Sanders, a more than capable pass catching running back at Penn State. It will go a little bit further on this in just 1 second. Okay, we have the easiest pick in the world here. We're going to take Kyron Williams. I mean, Kyron Williams, I do want to see the athletic profile and the size once we get to the NFL Combine. It's going to be a player that could either shoot up or really fall far from here. But nonetheless, I think if we're talking about the upside that he has as just a more than capable, I mean, pseudo 3-down running back, I'm taking Kyron Williams at the 207. But let me go back to Dotson because I have been on record saying that he was overvalued previously, and I was just wrong, and I need to address this. I mean, going into 2019, very similar type of situation. You have KJ Hamler. You have Pat Frymuth. So, of course, Dotson isn't going to come out and have that elite breakout his sophomore year. I think we need to be putting the context into the situation and fully understanding this. I mean, if we're looking at just the receiving yards per game, he was almost identical to Pat Freiermuth, who of course a tight end, but I mean, definitely older than Dotson. And then the second you have KJ Hamler leave, this is when you see Dotson really take that next step. You have KJ Hamler leaving, and in 9 games, he goes for almost 900 receiving yards, almost averages 100 receiving yards a game when this offense was only throwing the ball for 250 passing yards a game. So he does have that breakout. The second KJ Hamler is out of Penn State, and then he continues with that ascension his final season there, where yet again, he averages almost 100 receiving yards a game. So with Dotson, I apologize for previously stating that I thought he was an overvalued player where people were taking him. But I think if you're going to be getting him in the second round with the context behind his production, he's a completely fine draft pick, and I was wrong. Okay, so Derek coming out says, who has/had the better profile coming in, George or Carl Pickens? Okay, well, the thing with George Pickens is he has such an incomplete profile. I'm not going to lie, I have no idea. Let me pull this up. So obviously with Pickens, 5-star prospect, I mean, a lot of people are excited for that, but how am I supposed to remember? I mean, Carl Pickens and his collegiate profile when I was not even born yet. So let me pull this up. If we're going to be looking at his best season, that was his sophomore year at Tennessee, average, I believe, off the top of my head, about 90 receiving yards a game. Oh, and his offense only threw for 205 passing yards a game. He accounted for about 45% of his college's receiving offense, and that was on, I mean, a per game basis. As in a good conference as a sophomore on a team that went 9-2. Yeah, I think Carl Pickens definitely had the better profile. I mean, George Pickens, he has upside. The thing is, it's so damn hard to evaluate the actual profile that you're looking at. And I apologize. I know it looks like I am legitimately just taking the top player according to ADP. I know we didn't do that with Kenny Pickett, but we did that with Kyron Williams, and we're going to be doing it yet again with Brian Robinson. I mean, Brian Robinson, speaking of production contextualized for his specific offense. First off, running back production doesn't matter nearly as much as wide receiver production in identifying the players that are going to succeed at the next level. And the reason is simple. Wide receivers, a lot of their production is because they won at the catch point. They were able to generate separation in the first place, and production is dependent with talent. However, we see this all the time with running backs. Running backs, I mean, an average player can step into an elite situation behind an elite Alabama offensive line and can have all the rushing yards in the world. And that really isn't going to translate over to the NFL level when, I mean, he doesn't have that beautiful situation. So yes, Brian Robinson was fantastic his final year, but he was a 5th-year senior. Okay. He played 5 years at Alabama. He was able to go back. I'm assuming this was because COVID rules. Okay. So he is able to come back to Alabama. Now, he was a great receiving running back, actually had 35 receptions here. Now, I am willing to write him the pass. And the simple reason is because he played at Alabama. And if we go over and look at what this Alabama offense was, if we look at who Brian Robinson was going up against, his freshman season there, you had Damian Harris, Najee Harris, and Josh Jacobs on the roster. He's not doing anything in that offense, of course. The second season there, you have Najee Harris. He's not doing anything in 2019 if Najee Harris is on this roster. And the third season there, you got Najee Harris in 2020. I mean, the final year, you finally have Najee Harris. You finally have Josh Jacobs. You finally have Damian Harris all off the roster, and he dominates on a per-touch basis. I mean, is a very efficient running back overall, does catch the ball out of the backfield. Now, of course, he has the size. The question is, what's the speed going to come in at, and what's the team investment that he's going to get in the NFL draft? But with Brian Robinson, he's going to be another one of these guys once we get either his combine or his pro day times. A lot of these running backs in round 3, I mean, we are going to get situations cleared up. I know people have been asking me a lot my thoughts on these round 3 running backs and guys that we should be going out and targeting. Wyatt is very interesting, obviously, because of his receiving game capabilities. But to be honest, I've been trying to avoid a lot of these round 3 running backs in terms of the analysis we're putting into them currently, because I really am going to have a hard time looking at them fairly until we have the actual size of these running backs, the actual BMI and the actual 40-yard dash times. Like I said, it doesn't matter at wide receiver what their size is. It doesn't matter at wide receiver what their athleticism is. That's why we have been able to dive deep on this wide receiver class and make 20-minute videos about individual prospects, because so much is driven by the context of their offense and the production profile that they have. But running back, it's a different story. So I apologize. I promise you, in the future, the second we get the combine, I'm going to be diving into pretty much every single one of these running backs that's currently going round 3, round 4, but we're missing some of the most important parts of their prospect profiles currently. So I know people still want to make videos on them. They still really want to hear about them, but the videos can be irrelevant in 2 weeks. And I don't want someone watching a video I made 3 weeks ago where maybe I talk about Brad Robinson being a great guy to go after. And of course, this is just an example, not saying this is going to happen. And then he goes and runs a 4.7 40-yard dash. And I just go, okay, well, crap, he can't succeed at the next level then. Okay. So let's go through. And Boyd coming out says, loves the Trey Mcbride value. Oh, yeah. With Trey Mcbride, looks like he is currently, I mean, I don't want to say in a tier of his own, but he looks to be in the Cole Kmet mold, almost, in my opinion, where he's the clear tight end 1 in his class. It's a down tight end class overall. So people are just completely writing him off. At the 206, I think it's almost whatever. I mean, going along someone like Kyron Williams, Desmond Ridder, of course, we still need the entire offseason to play out to see how that's going to be. But I think it's fair value for Trey Mcbride. Now, thank you, of course, for being a part of the flock, supporting the channel, checking out the live stream. If you have not done so already, drop a like, even though I know everybody has. And of course, as I'm trying to do this in every video, I accidentally forgot. Got to rep tag strong. Thank you. Hope y'all enjoy the video and have a great